Hi, I'm Micah Clark. Thank you for joining us today. I have a special guest with us. Many of you will know someone I've known for a long, long time, going back to the Indiana State Senate, State House. Good friend Marlin Stutzman is the U.S. Congressman from the 3rd District, which is up around Fort Wayne. Marlin, thank you for joining us today. I know you've been busy lately.
Thanks, Micah. No, great to be with you. Great to be
Well, I want to talk to you
on the
about,
program today.
thank you. I wanted to talk about the big issue of the shutdown. I think we're on day 37 today. Couple things. First, give me your overview of what's going on, maybe, and who's to blame for this. And I have a question too about something the left is saying about the House. You guys already passed this.
Yeah, we did. We actually passed a funding bill that we call a CR, a continuing
Hmm.
resolution, which just is an extension of the current budget. And actually, this goes back to Joe Biden. I mean, a lot of us conservatives, we grumble about the fact that we're passing a budget or an extension of a budget that came from the Joe Biden era.
Right.
But since this is the first year that Republicans control the House and have President Trump back in the White House, we're working on our 2026 budget. And so while we're in that process of doing that, and we've come a long way to pass the 2026 budget, the problem's going to be over in the Senate, where
Hmm.
we just don't have the enough votes to get past the cloture rule, which is a whole nother issue that I think keeps Republicans from passing good legislation. But we've already passed appropriations bills for the 2026 budget. And since we didn't have an agreement with the Senate at the time, back in September, we went ahead and passed an extension through November 16th. Well, that date's about on us because of the
Hmm.
shutdown, because Democrats don't agree to it. They're just really sitting and saying, look, we're not going to vote for any sort of funding for the federal government because you guys cut 1.5 trillion in the big beautiful bill that cut benefits to illegal immigrants,
Hmm.
as well as other cuts to spending in Washington. And Democrats are just showing again who they really are. They're more concerned about spending the American people's money than they are about having an efficient government.
So something I've seen on social media, and it's been posted by other Democrat members of Congress, and I don't understand what their tactic is. This is in the Senate now. We need to get 60 votes. We've got 53 Republicans and I think Fetterman. Um, but they're talking about trying to get the House to reopen, to go back and do this, start all over again with another CR in the House. Why would we do that when you guys passed it in September? Isn't the ball just in the Senate's court? What's their motivation for trying to throw this back into the House again?
Yeah, it really is in the Senate's court. I mean, they could, pass the CR, which Chuck Schumer has voted, and other
Hmm.
Democrats have voted for CRs dozens and dozens of times throughout history. And so this is not a new phenomenon. But I think that what happened was Democrats felt that they needed to stop President Trump's momentum. And I tell you what, if there's anything such as Trump derangement syndrome, it is real in Washington.
Hmm.
And the Democrats just don't want to see him be successful at any level. And so, the elections were coming on in Virginia, New Jersey, and New York City, and I think that that's why they went and stopped, shut the
Hmm.
government down back October 1st without a budget, and said we're going to wait until the elections occur, and then they got the outcome that they wanted, and I think that the shutdown did help them because they were able to blame Republicans for it. Here's the problem, Micah. Republicans control the White House, the Senate, and the House. Well, in the House, we don't have this cloture rule that they do in the Senate. And what the cloture rule simply is it's a final vote before, well, I should rephrase that. It's the last vote before the final vote to shut off debate. We all are familiar with Mr. Smith goes to Washington,
Hmm.
how he stands on the floor and filibusters the bill.
Hmm.
Well, they don't typically do that in the Senate anymore because they can just say we're not going to give you 60 vote. We're not going to give you, Republicans have 53 Republicans, so you need 7 Democrats to vote to shut off debate to go to final passage where you only need a simple majority. And the Democrats just refuse to have 7 Democrats vote to stop the debate, and so they're just forever in a filibuster, basically. and it's a complicated rule that, or it's a simple rule, but it's complicated understanding the whole process. So I don't think a lot of the American people understand that, nor should they have to. But it doesn't allow the governing or the majority party, which in this case is the Republicans, to actually govern. And so they kind of get to have their cake and eat it too, where they can say, well, you guys are in charge, but we're not going to allow to get to final passage because we don't like the bill, and therefore we're going to stop it on the cloture rule. So I think that's what is very confusing to the American people. And you can, honestly say, well, you're in the majority, and you're not allowing for the bill to get to the floor because Democrats just simply won't give the votes on the cloture rule.
Do you ever miss the Indiana General Assembly and how simple our rules were? We didn't have goofy rules like that. I really think that's what our founders wanted in Washington, was something that worked like the Indiana General Assembly, simple up or down votes. I mean, some of the rules they have it takes forever for you guys to pass a bill. Half the time the chamber's empty when they're speaking or voting. It's so bizarre when you've worked in the Indiana General Assembly and you see how they do it out there. I bet it makes you want to pull your hair out sometimes.
It really does. And there's no other state senate that I'm aware of that has that cloture rule. They may have forms of it, but it's really just the United States Senate. And it actually used to be, the history of it was it had to be 75 out of 100 that voted to shut off debate, because what was happening is they were bringing the votes to the floor and they would quickly shut off debate, and then not every senator had the chance to speak on the bill. Well, so they implemented the cloture rule and saying we're going to close debate, and we're going to have 75 members, the large majority, 3/4 of the Senate body, vote to shut off debate, which that seems like a reasonable and common sense thing to do. But when you start saying, guess what? We're not going to ever shut off debate. That way you can't get to a final vote. Well, that's not what it was designed for either. So now there's abuse of the rule that they had to implement because they were shutting off debate too quickly. And so that's why they lowered it down to 60 votes back in the 70s, I believe. And and now, of course, unless you have 60 Republicans or 60 Democrats, you just can't get anything done if the other party says so. And a lot of Republicans, and I just disagree with the Republican senators, say that, well, you don't want to get rid of that cloture vote because if the Democrats get in charge, they're going to, pass a bill that makes Washington, D.C. a state and Puerto Rico a state, and they're going to pack the courts in the Supreme Court. They're going to expand the courts and pack it. I think there should be, rules around that. But at the same time, let's pass good policy as Republicans and let the American people decide. And if the Democrats were to be in charge, the American people can always come back and say, we don't like that you packed the courts. We don't like that you brought in Puerto Rico as a state, and they're going to vote them out of office. That's what happens in Indiana. So I just think that we have to look at the context that we're in too. With this cloture rule in place, we have $37 trillion of debt. So Republicans need to look at the flip side and say, because of the rules, Democrats seem to always get their way, but Republicans don't get our way.
Can you explain to me why the polls place most of the blame at the feet of the Republicans when every Republican in the Senate, save for, I think, Rand Paul, has voted to reopen the government 14 times?
That's a great question. I think that it's just the mainstream media, the establishment media over the years has built this narrative that Republicans just simply don't like government, and so we're always willing to, shut it down and we're anti-government. Well, we're not. We're actually for efficient government. We're for a government that actually serves the people. Take food stamps, for example. I will support food stamps, but I don't want to support food stamps for people that don't need it. We have 44 million Americans on food stamps. Something's not right here. We don't have 44 million people in America that aren't working. We actually have very low unemployment here in the United States with our economy. I mean, we're at 4% unemployment. So there can't be that many people that really need the help, and they're ruining it for those that really desperately need the help. I mean, I know, single mothers right now who have 4 kids, and they're trying to work and of course pay their bills. And the cost of life anymore is so expensive. Rent has gone up, utilities has gone up, insurance has gone up, food costs are kind of coming down now. Finally, gas prices are lower because of Trump's policies. But people are still recovering from the Biden inflation era that really hurt the American family. And so I think that that's what people need to realize, is that we're trying to clean up this mess that has become so bloated. I mean, the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse in government is just unsustainable. And that's what President Trump has been trying to clean up. But the Democrats are very good at putting fear into people's minds that Republicans want to take away health care, they want to take away food stamps. No, we're simply just trying to protect those programs so that they can be available for those people who really need it, rather than those who are taking advantage of the American people.
Do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? Are we getting close to reopening? There is a prediction. I don't have a crystal ball, but are you seeing any movement on the Hill?
Yeah, we are hearing that Democrats, they had a good election night Tuesday night, and that was, of course, I just really think that Democrats are very good at politics, and by shutting the government down, that pushed all of those federal government employees that live in Northern Virginia back home where they're not working, and so they were, of course, campaigning and helping to get the vote out for Democrats in Virginia. So that was a big help to them. They had a really, a good margin. And I think that there's some things to be said about, the Republican candidates. She just, for whatever reason, didn't come across as strong as what the previous governor there did in Virginia, and just didn't connect with the voters the way that we needed her to. But she's a great lady, strong voice. I hope that she will be involved one way or another. But the Democrats just were better at pushing their voters home with a shutdown, and they were the most energized. But I think that now that that's over, that they're more than likely to come back to the table probably the end of this week is my guess. Okay. They didn't want to do it Wednesday or maybe today because it just looked too obvious. But it looks like there's some Democrats that are saying, okay, we won the election. Now it's time to open up the government.
So let me switch gears with you on something that is big news here in Indiana, and that is their move to redistrict or redraw our congressional maps. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we need to do it. And, it's unfortunate that we're even having the conversation. And again, I mean, this comes back to, both Republicans and Democrats have the ability to draw their own congressional maps. Of course, the U.S. Senate lines are drawn because each state has 2 senators. But according to population, the state legislatures or an independent commission in some cases draw the maps for each of our states. And again, the Constitution leaves that responsibility up to each individual state to do that. Well, it will work fairly if the state's leaders will look at the percentage of elections and what the percentage of victory was and say, okay, this is roughly how many seats should be proportioned out. Well, if you look at California has 52 congressional districts, and right now they have 9 Republican congresspeople. And so they have definitely drawn their maps to favor Democrats in California, Illinois, New York, Massachusetts. They've been doing this for years. And, we as Republicans, if you look at Indiana's congressional maps, we're 7 Republicans, 2 Democrats. You look at the maps and, they're square for the most part, or rectangular. They make sense. And we actually got an A+ from several groups that rated congressional maps as how they were drawn. Illinois got an F. If you look at Illinois' map, they have 17 seats. And right now it's 3 Republicans, and they're talking about redistricting again and making it 2 out of 17 Republican. But it's just a race to the bottom, Micah. That's the unfortunate part, is that because Democrats have decided they're going to take advantage of the Constitution and draw districts to favor the Democrats, Republicans have to respond in kind. I mean, we can't allow for those Republicans in California, those Republicans in Indiana, to have a disadvantage because the Democrat Party decided they're going to gerrymander districts to give them an advantage in seats that favor Democrats. And so I think also we've wondered, the Democrats' policy has been an open border and allowing all these illegals to come into the country. And, our thought is, mine, I'll speak for myself. I was like, well, they want to make them citizens so they can be voters.
Mm.
Well, the other consequence that I didn't even think about was the fact that wherever you have these illegals around the country, they get counted into the census.
Right.
And so Indiana's not a sanctuary state like California or Illinois or Massachusetts is. So they have more illegals in those states than we do in Indiana. So they are given more districts because of the census. We don't ask in the census whether you're a citizen or non-citizen, which we should, and then take that into consideration how the maps are drawn. But instead, we count everybody. And so they have more illegals in those states. So that gives them more districts. If there is 12, let's just say 12 million illegals in this country, and let's just say even generously 5 million happen to be in California, that gives them almost, there's 750, roughly 750 people per congressional district. That gives them about 7 to 8 extra seats that they shouldn't even have. Because of the people that are there that aren't voters, they're not citizens. And so that's the other thing that we have to address. Democrats are always so much better at playing this game of politics and beating us by this sort of strategy that we just don't think about. And we're trying to be fair and honest and represent the people the way that we believe we should. But they're more interested in power, and they're able to play games like this that give them the power, and then they make bad policy. And so that's why I think Indiana needs to redistrict to counter this. But I think in the long run, there should be a conversation about every state having to draw maps that are fair. And, whatever that lane looks like of fairness is going to always be up for debate. But it shouldn't be Massachusetts having 9 Democrats and 0 Republicans. And in the long run, I would say if Massachusetts were 7-2, then Indiana can be 7-2 Republican. But they're, of course, just taking advantage of the situation.
Yep. And a lot of those states like Illinois, I mean, they have districts from St. Louis and squirrel up to Chicago, and we don't have that in Indiana. But well, Marlin, I know you're busy. I appreciate your time. Appreciate your service in the U.S. Congress. Both you and your wife served as state legislators, and appreciate you and all the work you're doing. And thank you for standing for faith and family and freedom for all these years. It's good to see you, and appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate all you do. And I think the one fight that we all need to continue to focus on is religious freedom, not only here in America, but around the world. And I appreciate your stand for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, we've been with Marlin Stutzman, the 3rd District Indiana Congressman today. Appreciate him joining us to give us an update on the shutdown and his thoughts on redistricting in California, Indiana, and other states. So I hope you enjoyed that. Appreciate you joining us today. Have a wonderful weekend.